Welcome to the Daily Agenda. It would seem the great mystery, as it were, of who wrote Manifesto, ostensibly by Tommy Robinson and Peter McLoughlin, the claimed reformed communist, although no communist is ever truly reformed. Isn't that the case? It always lingers with them, that highly destructive, toxic brainwashing, and it comes out quite clearly in the book itself. So that much is established. In fact, I reviewed this book last year on the Daily Agenda, and you can actually watch it if you scroll back through my profile. The reason why this is important now is that, in fact, we've been told that the real author of the book, the ghostwriter, the man who actually produced it to the high standard that it is Douglas Murray. Yes, the notorious Zionist talking head, the commentator. Of course, Robinson and Murray are both Mossad agents. That much we know perfectly well. Robinson jokingly admits to it, doesn't he? Although there's no joke about it, it is just fact. So the basic argument in the book is that the British National Party was an openly National Socialist political organisation, completely untrue, and that, of course, it was by extension left-wing. At no time was the British National Party ever openly National Socialist. In fact, the great schism that came in 1993-1994 was over the expulsion of the National Socialists who wanted to go on a campaign of armed revolution, which obviously John Tyndall and the Nationalists didn't want to indulge in, and they'd also been co-opted by MI5. In other words, corrupted, taken over and turned against the BNP, a fact which the former Tory Defence Minister Alan Clark confirmed to John Tyndall at their monthly dinners in London. So Mr Murray and McLoughlin and Robinson can concoct whatever fiction they want. But we can see here the basis of the hatred they spout against nationalism, full stop. Because in their worldview, nationalism is left-wing, and apparently they're right-wing. Zionism is right-wing, is it? Being a Zionist puppet is being right-wing? I think not. It's a legacy issue from the Tory party, quite frankly, and also Labour. Well, didn't they recently take a $1 million bribe from the Israeli regime to look the other way as the genocide was unfolding in Gaza? Of course, Murray and Robinson and assorted crackpots are all in favour of that utterly appalling genocide. And I don't support Palestine or Israel, for that matter, a fact which I've made perfectly clear, unequivocally clear many times in the past. But of course, this is not to be accepted, is it, to the likes of Murray, Robinson and McLoughlin. They just persist with their lunatic fantasies, and that's what it is. They also claim that Adolf Hitler was left-wing. Absolutely. Same genre as Marx and Lenin and Trotsky and Stalin himself. Just ignore the invasion of the Soviet Union to eradicate Judeo-Bolshevism. Of course, that is the major issue, isn't it? The enormous stumbling block which created the most fanatical clash in human history, because they were just what? Leftist factions at war with one another. On the contrary, as we know perfectly well, on the one side, Nazi Germany was an ultra-nationalist entity waging war on an ultra-leftist entity, the Soviet Union. And the two just simply couldn't share the playground, as it were. And that is the basic cause of that war. And Britain's role, of course, in it was utterly despicable. And of course, Murray's made some very interesting comments, hasn't he, about how the Germans buggered it up in 2 world wars. Does that sound like regret? Perhaps that's something Murray can explain for himself. But what we do know, as I said, and it's obviously surprised an awful lot of people on the centre-right. But when I read the book, Not only did I note the absolute nonsense that the British National Party was National Socialist and left-wing, a fact which his bosom buddy, fake Farage, a liberal centrist, has made himself. In fact, he started spinning that fantasy during the UKIP years, that safety valve operation, which has now become a centre-left flag group. And so that leaves us in a situation whereby what exactly is Robinson and what is Murray? And McLoughlin, of course, we know is a communist, and of course they have no problem at all cooperating, colluding with communists, a fact which Farage isn't either. We've seen that many times. Hope Not Hate, Revolutionary Communist Party, et al. The list just goes on, doesn't it, with these so-called centre-right people. Well, Farage is not centre-right at all. He's the liberal. He's a liberal centrist. And UKIP, which is ostensibly now Tommy Robinson's political wing, for want of a better description, is a centre-left flag group, using all the lexicon and terminology of the left, particularly that notorious poster they put out on social media a few months ago, in which Nick the Greek Tenconi, who's not even British, I might add, this is a man who thinks he can lecture the British on what Britishness needs. We'll take no lectures from the likes of Tenconi and his Italian-Greek heritage. Let's make that perfectly clear, on behalf of all nationalists, that is. Sadly, I mean, because I wrote the variable residency rules policy, you know, Mr. Tenconi doesn't really qualify for remigration, unfortunately. Although I'm sure we could find some grounds like subversion, because selling your soul in league with Zionists is counterculture, it's toxic, counterproductive, and it's also a threat to our national security. So perhaps we could actually remigrate him on those grounds. It'd be very interesting. Same with his bosom buddy, the gold smuggler and fraudster, Ricky Doolan. Yes, all of these people in the centre-left flag groups and seem to be criminals, don't they? With extensive experience and involvement in criminality, which is something you just don't find at the top of nationalism. I mean, you won't find it in the Homeland Party, of course, will you now? Where is it? You can't find it. It doesn't exist. And this is the problem, is that they want you to think that the Homeland Party and its precursor, the British National Party, and even the British Democrats, these are all National Socialist left-wing groups. Whilst at the same time claiming they are the real far right, innit, bruv. And also, we have more diversity here than the left. And we've covered this issue many times. We have more diversity in the left. Well, why do they feel the need to trumpet the fact they have more diversity than the left? Isn't that because they are more leftist than the so-called official left? I would argue that it is. And the fact that they also adopt left-wing lexicon whenever it suits them, particularly when talking about nationalists, proves that they are actually a centre-left flag group. So Tenconi and his crackpot Christians, and that performance they put on in Nottingham recently was just comedy. Truly, there were more coppers there than members of the public, which is all part of the comedy. And I've been speaking to some leading people in and around the centre-left flag group who've now realised that it is just a centre-left flag group and can't tolerate it any longer and are looking for a new political home. And they are very uncomfortable with it. In fact, one experience was related to me where an Indian woman got upon the stage at the October Griff Fest last year and reading from a phone said, "I am English, I am British, just as English and just as British as we are," apparently. That particular group of Englishmen in the crowd, led by one honest man, a man with self-respect and a great understanding of his Englishness, said to his friends, "Look, let's get out of here. I can't tolerate any more of this." These people have no involvement whatsoever in nationalist groups, but that is their future, I can assure you. That is definitely their future, because they've got no place whatsoever in a centre-left flag group like UKIP, or, you know, a liberal centre flag group like Deep Fake Reform. So they have nowhere else to go unless they form their own organisation, which they might, although I've advised them to speak to the leadership of the Homeland Party to see if they can come to terms with one another. But the basic argument that the British National Party was National Socialist and openly identified as such is just absolute hogwash. It is exactly the type of drivel you'd expect to read in Hope Not Hate, or back in the day, Searchlight magazine. Don't see an awful lot of difference between them, in truth. And McLoughlin, of course, being a communist, would fit in perfectly, wouldn't he? With both Searchlight magazine and Hope Not Hate. As for Douglas Murray, well, he's in the other branch of that source, isn't he? Zionism. They both come from the same source, don't they? Zionism and communism. Can we say what that source is? Perhaps the YouTube algorithm would not allow it, in truth. So it's perfectly obvious, though, isn't it? We all know who's behind that poisonous ideology. And that's the root cause of why they have to try and smear nationalists as being left-wing. Of course, we know perfectly well that we're not left-wing, that we're the only people on the right. And in fact, to be honest with you, standing here on the right, or the real far right, as that moron Paul Thorpe would say, they're the real far right, innit, bro? Or Gaffner, you know. Standing here on the real far right, the only right, it's a refreshing place in actual fact, because we don't have any bedfellows, because we know perfectly well that UKIP is a centre-left flag group, because that's all it does is wave flags, does silly little PR stunts like the one they pulled in Nottingham recently, which was cringe, absolutely cringe, truly. You know, no one in Nottingham is talking about it. No one in Nottingham has been inspired by it, and there will be no socio-political change anywhere in Nottinghamshire as a result of Nick the Greek and his mad-back Christians coming to Nottingham to dance around singing silly songs with their Christian crosses behind him, looking like the cross between the Branch Davidians and the Ku Klux Klan. Although we noted this time that there was no classic photo opportunity of Spot the White Man. They must save that just for when they're in the London area. Yes, absolutely, which makes sense, doesn't it? There's another reason why we are nationalists, or ethno-nationalists according to them, committed to mass remigration. But the real issue is this. Now that we've uncovered Douglas Murray was the real author behind Manifesto, it's no surprise whatsoever. And the real story that comes out of Manifesto is the sheer lack of a manifesto. There is not one proposal for change, nothing. Not even one paragraph, not one sentence. Not one sentence advocating change of any description. You would think, reading the book, that these people have no idea how to write policy. They have no idea how to change the country. And that's the whole point, isn't it? They're not here to change the country. They're here to tell people what's wrong and grift off them. And of course the book itself is overpriced by £10. Maybe that's Douglas Murray's cut, because he wasn't doing it pro bono, was he? You know, and of course, if any of them wish to deny it, then perhaps we should just follow the money trail. I wonder how much Douglas Murray was paid for producing this drivel. Like, the British National Party was an openly National Socialist party, and it was left-wing, and Adolf Hitler was a lefty, and associating us all together in actual fact, which is even more ridiculous. So, absolutely, if they wish to deny it, then bring it forth. I'm sure all the Robin Sob retards will be out again, the Tommy Tards, ranting and saying, oh, I don't care, because he's done a lot to expose this, that and everything else, and if he is making loads of money out of it, well, then that's good by me, innit, bruv? And that, quite frankly, is the personification of your average Robin Sob fanboy. Tommy Tards is what we call them. So, yes, I'm glad that we now know Douglas Murray was behind Manifesto, because there's no manifesto in it. And that's the whole point, isn't it? There will never be a manifesto, because these people aren't here to change anything. And the people who are here to change something will always be denigrated, attacked and smeared by them, and subjected obviously to their imitation game antics. So if Tommy Robinson now supports remigration, which is what he's been told to imitate, then perhaps he can come forward with a detailed policy like the one that I've written, perhaps he can trump it. Or maybe Douglas Murray will write one for him. Because let's face it, Tommy Robinson is an intellectual lightweight, isn't he? Let's be honest, that's what he really is. There's nothing much going up top with that lad, quite frankly, at all. And if he wishes to prove otherwise, well, he's open to accept my invitation to come into a studio debate with me. In fact, he could even send Douglas Murray to speak on his behalf. Anything goes as far as I'm concerned. They're welcome. But, you know, the game's up. And I can also close tonight by saying that there's some truly damning revelations coming in and around the centre-left flag group, which is Tommy Robinson and UKIP, later this year. And of course his morons, the Tommytards, will say, oh well, no, the thing is, he's done so much good work on the grooming gangs in here, I'm prepared to overlook XYZ that's coming out. Well, let's see if they do overlook it. But you can be absolutely certain that the vast majority of this people in this country will not overlook it. And I'll be leading that campaign of the people who will not overlook what they've been up to. All of those criminal shenanigans. And that's where I have to end tonight. Because, you know, I've made a promise to certain people not to reveal what I know ahead of the big revelations coming.